Hi there, welcome back. My name is Sheldon McLeod. This is Thinking Out Loud, and it's presented to you here exclusively by the Saltwire Network. And if you have been watching or listening to me at all over the last number of years, you know I'm not the biggest sport fan in the world. There's a lot going on in the world to talk about, and sometimes sport is not at the top of that list for me, but there's something, a development that's come about. Hockey Canada leadership team steps down. You can read this at saltwire.com. The CEO, the board of directors, all depart, as it says here, amid scandal. And this is something that has been part of an ongoing conversation. Hockey Canada sent this out in a news release. It said the board will ask its members to select a new slate of directors no later than forthcoming virtual election later in December. And it says that Hockey Canada is encouraging qualified people to respond to the call for nominations. There were parliamentary committees talking about it essentially was the way that a series of sexual mishandlings, or I guess you would call them sexual assaults as they would be known, came to light, and how this board oversaw and dealt with it is what the controversy seems to be. Judy Haiven is a retired professor of business at St. Mary's University. She's also involved with an agency called so can you remind me the name of this again?
Equity Watch.
Equity Watch.
That's right.
So tell me again, Judy, what is Equity Watch before we go too far along here?
Equity Watch is a non-profit, volunteer-driven organization that fights harassment and discrimination and bullying in the workplace. We've been around for about 4 years. Okay.
Now, this announcement today comes on the heels of a lot of public pressure, a lot of political pressure for Hockey Canada, the agency that oversees minor hockey and other sport in this country, to do something about sexual scandal. There were a number of folks involved with this news conference today. What was your message, first of all, ahead of what this announcement was?
Well, we heard about the announcement, but we don't think that their mass resignation is going to mean necessarily good news. It'll be okay news, but it's not going to improve things at Hockey Canada. Really, there has to be a culture shift. And the message of our press conference today, with 3 other women and myself, was to talk about what was really going on in the hockey culture and to explain that it's time that Halifax and Moncton refuse to allow these guests of the hockey juniors to come in December, and that there should be an inquiry into hockey in Canada, particularly into what's happened at Hockey Canada for 33 years. I'm sure some of your viewers know that Hockey Canada has paid out more than $8.9 million to more than 21 young women and girls for their silence on gang rapes. We're not talking about misunderstandings in a liquor lounge after dark. We're talking about gang rapes. We're talking about issues, criminal charge, these people could be criminally charged. They could go to jail for this. This is serious, serious stuff.
And I want to hear your thoughts. Equity Watch being the primary focus, we look at the province of Prince Edward Island. The government there passed a law that says non-disclosure agreements were never intended for the type of use that we're discussing here, where sporting agencies and organizations enter into an agreement to keep people from saying what their truths are. And I'm curious if you feel perhaps that should be perhaps the next step as opposed to a public inquiry, or should that happen in tandem?
I think it should happen in tandem. I think that because this is Canada's national sport, and Hockey Canada has been, frankly, stealing $47.80 out of every girl or boy who plays hockey, it goes directly to a participant assessment fund for matters including but not limited to sexual abuse. So approximately $48 per year per every child that's in hockey in this country is going to one of these secret funds that funds really the rape culture.
Well, and to that, I'm not part of hockey culture. I've never really been an athlete in that way. I've not even been, a viewer. That's not been what I'm interested in watching or following. So when you're talking about hockey culture and you're talking about the level of, interest in talking about Canada's sport as you referred to it, I'm wondering, when does the government need to step in beyond calling for a resignation? Where to next? What should happen next?
Well, I think that the government has some responsibility to have an inquiry because, as I told you, millions of dollars have been put into these secret funds. The parents have known nothing, and this is Canada's national sport. And janitors, teachers, waitresses, bank tellers, they've sacrificed to enroll their children in hockey, girls or boys, and ironically, the daughters, season after season in this national sport. And yet there is no accountability, and there is no one saying that that's all got to stop. The fact of the matter is, Hockey Canada has been asked time and time again to account for themselves and to weed out their problems, and they haven't done it. And even though they've resigned en masse today, I don't hear any notion of contrition.
To that point, you have an agency or a group that has been looking at trying to run an organization. And then part of this, as they describe it, was managing some of these other things. And it's terrible to talk to about it in those terms when you have people who are suffering from sexual assault. To say that the agency is managing this and trying to put the sport above all else, but it's the culture. We have now been 4 years removed since the start of the so-called Me Too movement. Where do you feel this reckoning? Why do you feel this reckoning has taken so long?
I'm not sure. I think that there are a lot of very wealthy men, typically, behind organized sports. There's a lot of money that's made. And we know that because of the long list: Tim Hortons, Nikes, Bauer Skates. All of these big international corporations, frankly, have been funding the sport, as well as hundreds of thousands of Canadian parents. There's a lot of money riding on this, a lot of prestige. I would also say that people listening should think about this. The boys or the men who have been caught and who are known called the gang rapes lamb roasts. Now, what does that tell you about the attitude of some of these hockey players? And we're not talking about 60-year-old men here. We're talking about 20, 19, 21-year-old young guys calling gang rapes lamb roasts. That denigrates women completely. And that's as though lamb to the slaughter, all of these things that we know about. We should start thinking about the kind of language and how women are treated in virtually all major sports. And Laura Robinson, whose excellent book was published about 29 years ago now, I think it's called Crossing the Line, gave example after example of what happened in hockey specifically. And even in those days and up till now, no one's paid serious attention.
And for someone who may be listening who says, I go out with the boys, we play some pickup hockey after work on a Friday night. That's not our culture. Our culture is, it's about exercise and camaraderie, about fellowship. It's about team play. So to those, what is the message, Judy? How will they be able to affect change, even though they may not be intrinsically part of exactly what you described as that rape culture?
They're not part of it. They're just playing, as you say, for fun or for sports or for athletic help in their diet. I don't know for what reason they want to do this. But I think that they have to decide they're going to be allies of women. They have to decide that women are not the enemy. They have to decide that when they hear in the locker room and they hear from their next door neighbors denigrating terms about women and what happens in hockey and what happens in many organized sports to young women particularly, they have to speak up. And they have to demand an inquiry as well. They have to demand what's happened to all the money that all of us have spent on this sport over, frankly, decades.
Judy Haiven with Equity Watch. I appreciate your time today. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I think that's fine. Thank you.
I very much appreciate having a few moments of your day, and thank you for weighing in with your thoughts today.
Okay, bye-bye.